people. I want to bring in our chief White House correspondent, Mary Bruce. She's right there in the crowd. She listened in on the speech. Mary Bruce, no question, a painful speech for the vice president to deliver. These are always difficult for whichever side loses.
Painful, David, bittersweet, but this was a chance for Kamala Harris to come out here and assure her supporters that the fight goes on. As you noted, she said that while she is conceding today, she does not concede the fight that fueled this campaign, the fight for freedom and for fairness. And she wanted to assure all of her supporters, and there are a lot of them here who are shocked, despaired, angry, many in tears. She wanted to assure them it's okay to be sad and disappointed, but saying to them, do not despair, saying don't throw up your hands, roll up your sleeves. And David, I think it is important to note that Kamala Harris here is doing something that Donald Trump still has not done. That is to concede and admit that she lost, and also to say that she will go ahead and go forward and participate in the peaceful transition of power. And that was a line here that got a lot of applause, I can say, David, even in the midst of what is a lot of shock for so many here today.
Mary Bruce right there at Howard University. Mary, thank you. Our chief Washington correspondent, Jonathan Karl. This campaign for Kamala Harris was just 107 days. So many things about this campaign, really on both sides, extraordinary. The assassination attempts on Donald Trump, this extraordinary political comeback unlike anything we've ever seen. And on the vice president's side, to have a president at the top of the ticket performing that debate like he did in June, President Donald Trump decide that he was not going to seek re-election, and then suddenly support the vice president and say in 107 days lost the election to the former president.
It's been a campaign for the history books, David. I have to say, I've seen so many speeches by presidential candidates losing presidential candidates. Candidates that never make it anywhere near this far. I think some of the best speeches that I have ever seen delivered have been concession speeches. I think of when Al Gore had to come out and address the country after the Supreme Court stopped the Florida recount, a race that ended really essentially in a tie, and had to address a very disappointed group of Democrats around the country and say, it's okay. I concede, I lost, I am now going to help George W. Bush in his transition. Or when John McCain came out and addressed supporters upset that Barack Obama had won. And he shushed the crowd when they started to boo his name and said, no, now we're going to support him. So I thought the most important line here, I mean, Mary hit the, we're going to continue to fight. That's very important to her supporters. But when she said, we must accept the results of this election, we will help that we will help him and his team with their transition. It's hard to imagine a more painful time to say that for Kamala Harris. She called him a tyrant, a petty tyrant, called him a fascist, and now is doing the right thing and saying the founding miracle of American democracy is we have a peaceful transition of power in the country. The loser wishes the winner well and helps them get started.
In fact, when she said we will engage in a peaceful transfer of power, that was the largest applause from the crowd gathered at Howard University.
One of the best speeches of her campaign. I think that was a very powerful speech.
It was authentic.
At the same time,
and Lindsay Davis, not lost on us, where she gave this speech. She was hoping to give a different one at Howard last night. This is her alma mater. She spoke of service there and also got a big reaction from the crowd. But no doubt, many young people in that crowd from that university community hoping that she would have made history.
And I was struck, David, by the close-up shots of the tears streaking the faces of the young people when she addressed them directly and said, it's going to be okay. I think that people needed to hear that from her in moving forward. And of course, it is at Howard University, the backdrop of all this. She talked about in her memoir that she decided that she would go there because it was a good place to start off her career at the alma mater of Thurgood Marshall. And in 2017, just a year after she had become only the second elected black female U.S. senator in this country, she gave a commencement speech there. Much different speech from today. And yet, she talked about how, I know sometimes we're afraid of falling short. It's not that we don't know what we should do. It's not that the bar can sometimes feel too high. It takes so much time and effort to reach it, so much sweat and so many tears. And being human, we sometimes fall short, and that's okay. And I think that we heard a lot of that sentiment really today. Of course,
I will never
said,
give up
not the
the fight for a future where Americans
she talked
can
about that wonderful
their dreams,
piece of writing that spoke of in the darkness is the most brilliant of stars. Just behind you there, Rick Klein is actually still standing after being here with us on the air until 5:30 in the morning when the race was called. Rick, just bring us up to speed. Obviously, Donald Trump, the president-elect, well above the 270 electoral votes he needs. There's 2 states outstanding here as this stands, Rick, and he will win the popular vote as well, which is a different scenario than the last 2 times he ran.
That's right, David. This is the electoral map as it stands at this hour, and we spent so much time over the last days and weeks talking about the battleground map, the paths to 270. Donald Trump bulldozed through basically all of those paths. In the battlegrounds, we saw last night play out in a way where he took North Carolina and Georgia, securing the 2 southern states, took then the big prize of Pennsylvania, breaking the big wall, the blue wall, and then the clincher in Wisconsin. This afternoon, ABC News projects that Donald Trump will also win the state of Michigan. So all 3 states in the blue wall. Right now, he is up in the vote count in both Arizona and Nevada. Very possible that he wins all 7 battleground states. And he did it by turning red places a little bit redder, by turning purple places red, by turning blue cities just a shade more Republican. He got record numbers of Latino voters for a Republican candidate. And at the end of the night, a remarkable achievement. He is now almost 5 million votes ahead of Kamala Harris. He cracks 50%. He is going to get a majority of voters for the first time in any of his 3 runs for president, David.
And he heads to Washington now with a Republican Senate. They've taken back control of the Senate. The House still has not been projected by ABC News. So a lot of change in Washington, and the voters sending a very clear message with what we saw overnight here. Our coverage continues on ABC News Live, abcnews.com. I'll be back with the entire team for World News Tonight. For many of you here in the East, your early evening local news is on, and I'll see you right after. Until then, good day.
This has been a special report from ABC News.